Hey guys, Garrett here from iOS Pro. Today I'm going to show you my entire Apple device collection for 2022. So let's get started. First up, the original iPhone 2G on 3.1.3. So since 2016, I've been trying to find a way to push this whole thing beyond its limits in 2022 or 2021. And 6 years later, or 5 years in 2021, I accomplished that with all these apps still ready today, and a lot of these are still in the App Store today. But the Life 107.1 app is the only one that can still play internet radio, so that's pretty cool. And I've also made it so it'll do audiobooks, videos, TV shows, and music as well. So I pushed this phone beyond its limits. I can also record video with an old camcorder app from the App Store, but it's not available anymore. But I do not need a jailbreak, so I don't jailbreak any of my phones because they go into safe mode every single time. Next up, the iPhone 3G and iOS 4.2.1. So you guys see, I also enable battery percentage without jailbreak. Can you see? No Cydia, nothing like that. And this phone is I don't use this phone much because I cannot downgrade apps on this phone at all. I've tried to log and say incompatible, but if you have the iPhone 3G that's running the same firmware, all apps can still be downgraded and transferred to this phone. Because iOS 4.1 is still being signed for the 3G and 3GS and iPod Touch 2nd and 3rd gen, so you can still downgrade to that as well. Next up, the iPhone 3GS on iOS 6.1.6. So if you go to settings, say 6.1.6 right here. And this phone is one of my favorite ones. First one to record video, the fastest old device I have in my collection that runs iOS 6 very fast and all that. Still, out of all my entire device collection, this is the fastest phone running its older version. Because I've used this phone, it's very fast, very responsive. Even faster than the original iPhone on its original firmware. Or the latest, I meant. Pretty cool. You can still play YouTube through Safari and all that. And later on, I'll show you the cases I made for these phones later on. Next up, the iPhone 4 running iOS 7.1.2. You see, 7.1.2. And if you're running iOS 7 or later, you can still downgrade a lot of modern apps today. Like TikTok, Netflix, Instagram, all that. So Netflix does still run on the iPhone 4 running iOS 7. TikTok does not. This one's out of date. It gave me Musical.ly instead of TikTok. So you guys may remember that TikTok used to be called Musical.ly. So pretty cool, but I'm not going to open it due to YouTube copyright policy for the demo videos they do in here, so I'm not going to do that. You can also play videos through Safari and all that, so pretty cool. Next up, my iPhone 4S on iOS 9.3.6. See if I go to settings here, 9.3.6. And this phone is the most unusable phone I've ever used. Still runs good, but it's pretty unusable in some areas, like watching YouTube videos on Safari, loading web pages. All that's pretty much unusable. And I could tell because I ran Geekbench 4 and the iPhone 4 took 5 minutes. This one took 20 minutes, 15 to 20. That's how I can tell how slow the phone really is. I also have another iPhone 4S running iOS 6.1.6. Or 6.1.3 I meant, sorry about that. General, about, see 6.1.3. I downgraded this phone in 2019 when the firmware was still being signed. So some of you guys may wonder, what does Apple do to stop signing the firmwares? Well, basically they stopped signing the SH blobs. Without the blobs, downgrades will not be possible. So if Apple starts signing the blobs for these older firmwares, you can still downgrade them today. But unfortunately, Apple does not sign the blobs anymore, so I cannot downgrade anymore. But the good news is, and iOS 4.1 is still being signed for the iPhone 3G, 3GS, and iPod Touch 2 and 3 is today. Still is, so you can still downgrade those firmwares today. So, and cool, and this is my favorite phone out of all of them, my fastest too. See, settings, fast, very responsive, and all that. So pretty cool. And next up, my iPhone 5 running iOS 10.3.3 or 10.3.4. General, about 10.3.4, right there. So I actually downgraded the phone to iOS 6 through a tool on my computer called Nightshade. And the good news is, if you want to go to iOS 8, you can still use the tethered downgrade to upgrade to iOS 8 to a non-tethered downgrade. because this phone was originally on iOS 6. Then I upgraded it over the air to iOS 8, and stock firmware and all that. Then later on, a couple like yesterday, I upgraded this thing back to iOS 10.3.4 to make sure it's all secure and all that. Next up, my iPhone 5C running iOS 10.3.4. So goes general software update. You see 10.3.4. But basically why my phone, this 5C, was able to run 10.3.4, even though it was meant for certain devices only, like the 5 and iPad 4, was because the file for the iPhone 5 running iOS 10.3.4 is actually compatible with the iPhone 5C. Well, that's why I was able to do it. And while I'm here, I want to show you the custom cases I made for these row right here. 3G, 3GS, 4, 4S, and the iPhone 5. I basically made these cases to support my best friend and artist and musician, Hannah Strumner. So if you want to go check her channel out, I'll leave that in the description below. And I did ask permission from her to show these cases on this video before I started, just to be safe. Because of YouTube's policy, where you're not allowed to record somebody or show the picture without their consent. So that's why I asked permission before showing the cases on here. Next up, the iPhone 5S running iOS 12 right here. You want to go settings, go to general, software update, iOS 12.5.5. So my iPhone 5S and later are my fastest phones. They can still run pretty much all apps from the App Store today, pretty much all of them. That's pretty cool. So my 5S running iOS 12. So let me stack some of these here. Next up, the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus right here. These are my favorite phones out of all of them. My iPhone 6, it still runs great. Because if you're having trouble pairing your accessories up to your HomeKit and all that, the iPhone 6 is the best one to go to. It will pair them up no problem. You see, iPhone 6, 6 Plus, both on iOS 12. Software update as well, 12.5.5. And my 6 Plus here does have an unusual error. The stabilizer of the camera's broken, so it'll do this. You see the camera starts shaking. It's very hard to see this on video, but it is shaking. So see the camera shaking? That's why it looks like that. Because the stabilizer is trying to focus, but it cannot. So that's why the camera shakes on my iPhone 6 Plus here. These two are pretty great phones. Next up, my 6S and 6S Plus. Right here. So the 6S Plus, I'm going to try to get another one off eBay because my 6S Plus currently has a storage problem. You see, 5 gigs with no data on it, just one app. So I can't even update it here either. See, when I get software update, storage problem. Because my 6S Plus, if you have a 16 gig device, the storage cannot be calculated correctly. So that's why it's doing that. And my iPhone 6S, 128 gigabyte model. So 6S and 6 Plus are my favorite phones, but the battery life is terrible on these devices, so pretty bad. Now 6S and 6S Plus today. Next up, the iPhone SE first generation here. So if you guys are wondering, I actually did a housing swap between a 5S and an SE to make this phone look like a 5S. Because I was pulling a prank video on TikTok where I made it look like a 5S, but it was really just an iPhone SE in a 5S shell. But believe me, on my Twitter, iOS Pro, and my TikTok, everyone fell for it. It's pretty darn funny. And you see I have a stiff touch on because I broke the home button in the process, so pretty good phone still. And I broke the Wi-Fi antenna in the process too, so no Wi-Fi, nothing. So pretty good iPhone SE and a 5S shell. So the parts from the iPhone SE and 5S can be interchanged, including the screens and the home buttons. So pretty cool. Next up, the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus here. So these two phones I used to use for my beta videos, but I decided to stop using them because my subscribers were complaining, or a lot of guys were complaining that my phones were too old and were not modern. These phones run great, and I kind of agree. Some features are missing off the 7 and 7 Plus. That's why I upgraded to the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro models. So these phones still run great. I love the landscape mode on the 7. But the other thing is the 7 and 7 Plus have bad battery life as well. They can't update or play VR videos on YouTube. They just zap the battery and overheat real easy. So those are the 7 and 7 Plus models here. Next up, the iPhone 8 running iOS 15.2 or 15.5 I meant. See general about 15.5. And you see, I'm going to be updating this to the latest beta later on today. This is my favorite phone. I've used this phone a lot for shopping and everything. So best phone for doing that. Best phone looking at my videos, Netflix, and everything still today. And I still listen to my music on here today as well. So still good camera, good everything. Next up, iPhone 10 here. And yes, I'm going to be replacing this phone because it needs a new screen and everything. Face ID does not work. Everything is kind of busted up pretty bad, including the cameras and all that. So iPhone 10 still works today, but the Face ID does not work. So some of you guys may not know this, but if you guys remember when iOS 13.3.1 came out, if you guys updated to 13.4, the Face ID could stop working. So the 13.4 update back in 2019 could cause the Face ID sensor to stop working totally. And that's exactly what happened to my iPhone 10. The Face ID area stopped working altogether. So that's why I don't use the phone, and I'm going to be replacing it. Next up, iPhone 11. So my iPhone 11 on iOS 10, iOS 15 actually, because I recently updated this phone. And I used to use the phone for my videos as well, including my AirPods Pro automatic device switching video. That's when I use this phone for, right here. Now, it's still a great phone today. I still use it for like other things. Next up, the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Let me unlock it here. So my 11 Pro Max still running iOS 15 today. So I use this phone for my videos as well. So I use the 11 Pro Max and 12 Pro Max for my videos. Like every other video scene, I use this phone and the 12 Pro Max, and I made a custom case for it. So if you're wondering why it looks broken, it's because I tried the clear back mod that everything on Pro and Jerry Rig everything tried. So let me get this back thing off. See, I tried it and it kind of failed because the glass shattered instead of it coming right off because the adhesive was so strong. You see, there's a wireless charging coil right here. So clear back mod, fail. So pretty bad one. Next up, the iPhone 10R on iOS 10 right here, on iOS 15 right here. So I go settings here, go general, software update, and it runs the latest iOS 15 beta. So I will be updating this phone to the latest firmware as well, but I still use this phone every day for TikTok, games, and all the other cool stuff. So I use this one a lot every day for music too. That's the iPhone 10R in Coral. Next up, the iPhone SE second generation. Now, this phone is great, but the battery life sucks because it's terrible. Because my phone is drained. It takes like only 2 days for my phone to go flat. That's how bad the battery is on the phone, but it's still cool. And this is the second generation. So I go software about, see iPhone SE, and the wallpapers. See, I got the iPhone SE second gen wallpapers right here, so pretty cool. So the last iPhone for this portion of the video will be my iPhone 12 Pro Max right here, see? This phone still works great today for everyday life tasks. So I did my personal phone running iOS 15, so see service and everything. So this is my daily phone. And I also installed a camera protector, metal camera protector on top of it, which actually sparkles in the sunlight. Hard to see on camera, but it does sparkle. So that's the iPhone portion of this video. So next up will be the iPads. Next up, the iPad. So this, I have the original iPad first generation right here. See, iPad first gen, no camera, nothing. And it's running iOS 5.1.1 today. Still works great, very smooth, everything. I can just even watch Netflix on here because I've already had the Netflix app installed before the Netflix stopped working. So only iPads that have had Netflix installed running iOS 5 before the iPad got discontinued can still use it today. iBooks, Pages, Quizlet, and all the other apps still work on here. So that app that you saw on the home screen was actually a test run. I was testing the educational apps on the older device to see if they still work, and apparently not. They're too old, it doesn't work anymore, so that's why I see that app there on the second page here. So that's the original iPad first generation. It even has the old YouTube built in, see? The old YouTube app doesn't work anymore, but it's still great to have in the memory. Next up, the iPad second generation, or the iPad 2. So this one's running iOS 6.1.3 right here. So I downgraded this iPad to iOS 6 back in 2019, along with my other iPhone 4S from the iPhone portion of this video, so it still works great. And the clock app, the photo booth, and my favorite, the photo booth, because this is what you get. See, you get all the other cool effects with the photo booth and all that. So, and that other mirror image, that's just my chair behind me. That's what you're seeing there. Pretty cool. I even installed the New York Times on here before the app could no longer be downgraded. Oh, pretty cool. And all my games and apps still work on here. Music, TV shows, everything still work on here. So pretty cool device. And it's broken because I overused it. It was actually due to a chip right here. I tried cleaning the dirt off from the bezel when I was at my school in 2019 and it cracked. So that's why it's like that. Next up, the iPad 3 or iPad 3rd generation here. Hang on a sec. Okay, so this is my iPad 3rd generation. I can still watch Netflix and all most apps on iOS 9. And this app right here is called iStandard Clock. This is the app they used to have before Apple introduced the clock app to their iPads in iOS 6. You know, the iPad 3 is unusable, slow, laggish, so I don't use this iPad much because it's super slow and unusable. So it still runs iOS 9 great. So, impressive. And this one I used to use when I was in school when I was young for like work and all that. Not the same one, but next up, my iPad 4, which I am in the process of fixing because under here, I'll show you that the battery actually expanded here. So I had to take the battery out. You're gonna have to replace the touchscreen or digitizer and the headphone jack board up here, even the volume rocker assembly. Because if you look right here, it's very hard to see this. Sorry about that. You can see that I actually broke a pin right there on the headphone jack connector, so or the volume power button connector. So I am in the process of ordering new parts for this iPad to fix. So iPad 4 right here. Next up, iPad Air. So this is my iPad Air running iOS 12 right here. So this iPad battery is terrible, 100%. You can see 5%. I actually charged this thing up like a day ago and now it's already dead without me using it. So I used to play all my favorite old games on this iPad when I was young. So really good memories of all these games. But since I updated to iOS 12 from iOS 10, this happened. You see, clock needs to be updated. Some of these apps don't work anymore. So the iPad's still usable, but terrible battery life. Okay, so next up, iPad Air 2. Right here, so my iPad Air 2 is right here. Hang on a sec. Maybe I'm cleaning out my widgets here. So, as you guys can see, this iPad I recently updated to iOS 15, so that's why the widgets are there. Even when I go to About, iOS 15.5 is latest firmware. It can run today. So this iPad is pretty slow in iOS 15. I do regret updating it to iOS 15, so you see the lag there on iOS 15. So I do regret updating this thing to iOS 15. It's so slow, unusable, and this is the same iPad I've had since 2016. I used to use it for schoolwork all the time. Now I don't use my iPad much anymore because it's pretty old and all that. Next up, the minis. So first up, iPad mini 1. I recently updated this iPad to iOS 9 like yesterday. You see all my games still work on here and everything, but the iPad is very slow now. Came unusable. I can also play Flappy Bird on here. And if you guys are wondering how I got it back, it's simple. If one of your family members or a friend purchased it, you can go to the purchase section and re-download it. Only running iOS 7, 8, 9, or 10. Because iOS 11 and later, you cannot play Flappy Bird anymore on iOS 11 or later. So, it's pretty cool. Next up, iPad Mini 2. So this iPad, I'm still going to work on. I'm fixing this one as well. This is my iPad Mini 2. Right here, cellular Wi-Fi model for LTE. And this iPad broke because I kind of sat on it on accident, so it cracked. Because it blended in with my bed and all that. So I'm working on repairing this iPad as well because I have a lot of data on here that I don't want to lose. Alright, so last up, my iPad Mini 5. This is my old iPad before I went to the Pro model. So that's pretty cool. It runs very fast today and A12 processor and everything. Now the last iPad is my personal iPad Pro. Right here. So this is my iPad Pro 12.9 inch, 4th generation. You guys can see the iPad is still working today. Very smooth. 100%. You see, I have not updated this iPad yet to iOS 15, so this iPad is my favorite. I use this iPad daily now, so pretty cool. Okay, so next up, the iPod lineup. Okay, so next up, the iPod Touches. So first up, the original iPod Touch 1st generation right here. So you see, 8GB model, iPod Touch 1st gen, running iOS 3.1.3. I just restored this one to iOS 3.1.3 from 3.2, and it runs pretty great. Still fast, fluid, good usable device for music. Next up, the iPod Touch 2nd generation right here. So you guys see I recently updated this iPod Touch to 4.2.1 as well. See 76% battery power. Just like the iPhone 3G, I'm not jailbroken whatsoever at all. So no jailbreaks, nothing. So The iPod Touch 1 and 2 I don't use that often because they're pretty slow. But the iPod Touch 3 I use a lot because I can still play great games and everything on here. And I can still message, do everything. And this is iOS 5.1.1. Now you also enabled the battery percentage without jailbreaking, just like the iPhone 3G. So pretty cool. You know, YouTube still works, the map still works. The battery life does not last that long on the iPod Touch 2nd and 3rd gen. Next up, one of my favorites, the iPod Touch 4th generation. So you see, iPod Touch 4, settings, about 6.1.6. So a lot of apps do run on here, but you have to have a device that already has apps installed in order to install them on here. So pretty cool. I've also installed all my music on here as well. You see, all my songs and everything still work on here. Well, I turned on the assistive touch because I was having trouble with the home buttons and all that. Because if I use this iPod a lot, the home button will start failing, quitting temporarily. So if I leave this thing out for a while, then home button will fix itself. So interesting. So the iPod Touch 4th generation, very clean and all that. So I am using my dad's phone to film this video today. So in case you guys are wondering. Next up, the iPod Touch 5th generation right here. So you see my iPod Touch 5 running iOS 9. When I go to settings, general, software update, iOS 9.3.5. So this is one of my favorite iPod Touches out of all of them because it has the wrist strap and it's like yellowish greenish. So I like this color actually with the wrist strap loop. You can actually use any wrist strap with this, like a Wii remote wrist strap and all that kind of stuff. So I currently use a Wii remote wrist strap on this thing. I don't have it right now, but I can demo that in another video after the video is over. Next up, my personal iPod Touches 6 and 7. So these two are my favorite ones, the iPod Touch 6 and the iPod Touch 7. So I actually did a video on the iPod Touch 6 years ago, back in 2017, where I unboxed the 6th generation. That video is still on my channel right now. So I'll leave a link to that if you want to check that out as well. And then the 7th generation, my most recent one, I actually did the unboxing video on this in 2019 as well. So I'll also leave the link to that in the description below as well. Oh, pretty cool. So that's the iPod Touch lineup. Next up, I want to show you, or that I have the old iPod Mini. So this is iPod Mini right here. Perfectly working today. I use this iPod for listening to music in the car. So perfectly working today. All my songs still work here, but I'm not going to do a demo because of use copyright policy and all that, so I'm not going to do any music on here. So that's the iPod Touch, iPod Mini I meant. Next up, the Nano. So this is my iPod Nano. I recently did a conversion from black Nano to a white Nano on this iPod. That's why the screen looks a little dinged up and everything looks like it's kind of separating here. The battery is not that great because I haven't replaced the battery yet, but still, pretty good iPod. I like this little iPod. Chrome finish, 2 gigabytes, all that. It's a working iPod Nano 1st generation from 2005. Next up, iPod Nano 6th generation. I like the faces on here too. See the iPod Nano 6th generation. I use this iPod to listen to music at home. So at home, I use this iPod for listening to music. Pretty cool. Yeah, I have Nike radio, which uses the microphone of the headphones as the antenna. That's pretty cool. iPod Nano 6th gen. Next up, the shuffles. I have the 1st generation iPod Shuffle right here. See, it's perfectly working with the lanyard on here. So if I remove the cap, you can see it's only 500 megabytes. You can see iPod, the battery indicator, press it, still working. So I started collecting the old iPods near the end of 2021. Looks pretty cool. So iPod Shuffle 1st generation. You could also use that as a USB stick for like storing stuff. Next up, iPod Shuffle 2nd generation. So you see the light's still working. I use this iPod for at-home music as well. Pretty cool, and it charges through the headphone port, which is pretty interesting actually. But when I tried syncing these two up, I had no choice of what songs I put on there. The computer chose it for me. I could even clip this to my pocket. On the 1st gen, I put it around my neck. Sorry if I bumped the camera there. In the last one, the iPod Shuffle 3, but this one is currently not working right now because I want to show you. I can actually open this thing up. You see I opened it up and shows the internals. I'm currently waiting on a headphone jack and switch assembly replacement. Right here, sorry about that. So that's the battery and the launcher board. Just what a screw holds it in. And here's the clip mechanism, see? Little spring there. So that is the iPod Shuffle 3. Next up, the Apple Watches. So first of all, the Apple Watch first generation right here. I put tape on it because the battery started to expand a little bit. I can actually open it up so you see. It's very hard for me to show you this, but the battery looks a little puffy. See? I'm currently going to get a battery replacement for this watch eventually. This watch still works perfectly today. I can still use this, but the games on here is very unusable. No Siri. Nothing like that. Sorry if I sound funny. I'm dealing with a cold right now, so sorry about that. So the original Apple Watch. Next up, the Apple Watch 3rd generation, or Series 3. You see, I actually got this one as a Christmas gift because my original was running so slow. And this is the same Apple Watch as this is the very same watch from 2017 Christmas. Runs great today in watchOS 8. Next up, the Apple Watch 4 right here. You see, this is the watch I saved up for myself. Now, after I got my Series 3, I decided to save up for all my watches on my own now. And so, in settings here, settings software update. See, I haven't updated to the latest watchOS 8.6 yet. Now I'll do that soon. So Apple Watch Series 4. Next up, Apple Watch Series 5. This is the one I saved up for myself as well. Same color as my Series 4, except for one difference. On the watch band here, you can see the pin is silver instead of rose gold. So that's the only difference here. Yeah, Series 4 and 5. And then my latest, Series 6. This is the one I had before my personal watch I have on now. See, I got the Pride band for a test run in the blue frame here. It's pretty cool. The battery is currently dead right now with this watch. You see, dead battery, so I can't show you anything right now on that watch. And then next up, my latest Series 7. So this one I got in the gold stainless steel with the Milanese loop. And I actually had the Apple Watch since 2015, and it did leave a mark on my wrist, see? A tan line. So basically what happened was, when back in 2014, when that slot got covered up, that spot there, the rest of my body got tan and that spot didn't. That's basically what happened. Why I have that mark there. Pretty simple. It'll happen to anyone who wear the watch. No, that is the Apple Watch collection. And last up, the AirPods for the small device collection. In the background, you can see I got my computers right here. And I got my MacBook Pro running macOS Big Sur. I downgraded that to macOS Big Sur in order to fix my iPhone 4. In my Mac desktop, this is the computer I used to upload all my videos to my channel with. So, interesting. Next up, the AirPods. First one, the AirPods 1st generation. I use these AirPods to film some of my old AirPods video series. Like a video called Do Apple AirPods Work with iPhone 4? Back in 2017. That video can be found in my most popular video section. If you switch the channel section to most popular, you can still see that today. Still working, very same ones. Next up, the AirPods Pro. This was all the Christmas gift, but I had to take the engraving off before I made the AirPods Pro automatic device switching video. So that's actually in my most popular section, my second most popular video today. So, very same ones. Next up, the AirPods Max. So these are the headphones that you currently use today for everything. So, pretty cool. And if you have a special cable, lightning to auxiliary, you can actually use these with the original iPhone. Pretty impressive, actually. And last up, I got two more things, which is the OG iTunes disc from the old iPods. It's the iPod plus iTunes 2006. So I used to have an iPod Classic years ago, but it broke due to a repair failure. So I don't have the iPod anymore. And I still have the original OG Apple headphones from 2001. These are the genuine Apple headphones from 2001. See, these are also known as the showerhead earbuds because these look like shower heads, or a shower head basically. See, that's why they have the nickname showerhead earbuds. So that is my entire Apple device collection for 2022. So comment below which device in my entire collection do you like the most. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you like the video, give the video a thumbs up. It's my video. Peace out.